Hey everyone, this is Michael again, and welcome to the Smackdown review. And Smackdown tonight, it was a terrible show, in my opinion. It was god-awful. The show tonight was from the Tropicana Field in St. Petersburg, Florida. And this Tropicana Field is the new home for the Thunderdome for SmackDown, Monday Night Raw, and their pay-per-views. So this is where WWE is going to be for the time being because they had to get out of the Amway Center. But overall, SmackDown was just a terrible show tonight. But let's jump right into the SmackDown review. So SmackDown opened up tonight with a contract signing between Sasha and Carmella. This is the contract signing for their match at TLC for the SmackDown Women's Championship. So Sasha ended up coming out. Adam Pearce was in the ring. Adam Pearce ended up going to introduce Carmella as Sasha was in the ring. And Sasha was upset because the contract was not in the folder. Sasha ended up asking Adam Pearce if this is some kind of setup. So then we get Carmella. Carmella then appeared on the screen. Carmella was shown having the contract. She ended up signing it. So there was this guy standing next to her, and Carmella reveals that this guy is her messenger boy. So she asks this guy to take the contract over to Sasha so Sasha could sign it. Sasha then ended up insulting Carmella. Carmella ended up saying that there was no way she was getting in the ring with Sasha. So Sasha ended up talking about stretching Carmella and making her cry. So this guy, Carmella's messenger boy, walks down the ramp with the contract, gets into the ring. He handed off the contract to Adam Pearce. Carmella and Sasha were still arguing with each other. Sasha then ended up signing the contract with her boss stamp. Sasha ended up saying that if Carmella wants the SmackDown Women's Championship, she better come out and get it later tonight. Carmella ended up saying that sounds like a plan. So Adam Pearce was like, oh yeah, well, that sounds like a main event. So he ends up making the match official. Carmella versus Sasha for the SmackDown Women's Championship. Why are we getting this match tonight? Why do we get this match tonight when we're going to be seeing that at TLC? So when WWE does this shit, it's going to end in the fuck finish. It's going to end in a countout or a disqualification. Why book the match on the show when we're going to see it at the pay-per-view? Makes no sense. It's just for WWE to get a fuck finish for the match, whether it would end in the countout or disqualification, because they know we're going to be seeing the match at TLC. And then at TLC, it's going to determine who wins the match, whether it's Sasha or Carmella. So then Sasha ended up saying that she's going to give Carmella a preview of how the match will go. So Sasha ends up slapping Carmella's messenger boy. She ends up beating him up. She dropped him with a backstabber. And she ended up flipping the table over on him. And that was basically that. So overall, this segment was terrible. I don't know why WWE loves to do this. Like I said, have Carmella and Sasha for the title tonight when it's going to be in the fuck finish. And we're going to be seeing at TLC. So it's this match later on tonight, which was the main event. It was a preview of what we're going to see at TLC. So once we see the match at TLC, nothing's going to be, different than what we saw in the main event that happened later on in the night. And then we had Kayla Braxton backstage with the Street Profits, Montez Ford, Angelo Dawkins. Braxton ended up asking them about Dolph Ziggler and Robert Roode, calling them funny. Montez Ford ended up going on about talking about his match with Dolph. Dawkins ended up mentioning that Roode is possibly getting involved and that he's going to be getting slapped. So the Profits were like, there's, their thing, we want the smoke. So we had that little interview with the Profits. Then we had Dolph Ziggler versus Montez Ford, which this match was okay. Wasn't great. Didn't love it though. But we had the Street Profits come out. They end up stopping on the stage. We had the Blue Cups shootout, and they rained down in the Thunderdome. So SmackDown went to commercial. Then when SmackDown came back, we had Dolph Ziggler and Robert Roode made their way out. Ziggler and Roode end up kind of promos on the Street Profits, saying how their title reign is going to come to an end soon. So we had that from Ziggler and Roode. And then the match got in the way, which Ziggler ended up taking Montez Ford to the ropes. Ziggler ended up striking and he ended up working on Montez Ford. He was using the ropes on Montez Ford. Dolph ended up nailing the drop kick to Ford, which he went for the cover. Ford ended up kicking out of 2. And we had Montez Ford. He later on did a awesome blockbuster to Dolph Ziggler, which sent him out to the floor. So Dawkins and Ford got in the ring. They were dancing around. And then we had the Blue Cups. They ended up shooting and raining down into the ring. So Dawkins and Ford were celebrating. And SmackDown went to commercial. Then when SmackDown came back, we saw Dolph Ziggler had control of the match. He dropped, a bunch of elbows to Montez Ford. So at the end of the match, we had Montez Ford going to the top. He was distracted by Roode. Roode ended up attacking Dawkins outside at ringside. And then we had Roode launched Dawkins into the ring steps. Dolph Ziggler took advantage of the distraction, knocked Ford off of the top. Dolph was able to deliver the super kick to Montez Ford. So there you go. Dolph Ziggler ended up winning the match. Overall, okay match. It wasn't great or perfect by any means. And then we had Sami Zayn. Sami Zayn was backstage. He was ranting to a merchandise guy because, oh, how do you not have shirts, with me as the Intercontinental Champion? So Big E ends up walking up. Sami Zayn wasn't happy with Big E supporting his new shirt that came out when, he didn't get one. So Apollo Crews and Kalisto were there. They were talking with Tamina. Big E ended up calling for Apollo to bring over a t-shirt that they had created for Sami. And, it was a, drawing that said, I'm Sami Zayn. Sami ended up getting upset. He tried to tear the shirt, but failed to. And pretty much that was basically that. Sami ended up storming off because he had a match with Big E that was happening next. So now we had the match, Sami Zayn versus Big E, which was just a very meh match, in my opinion. And when SmackDown came back from the commercial, Sami Zayn was in the ring. He was ranting on who he defeated and how he has no respect. He kept saying that he doesn't even have any merchandise and that he doesn't want any part of the consumerism. So Sami ended up bringing up how Pat Patterson was honored last week. And this is how, and he ended up saying that this is how they treat the Intercontinental Champion. So he was still ranting, and then Big E came out. Of course, Big E was doing his entrance with the powder or the chalk entrance like last week. His old entrance that he used to do before he got into the New Day. So Big E was waiting in the ring. Sami was ranting at Michael Cole and Corey Graves on the outside. And the referee was counting for Sami Zayn to get back in. So Sami got back in. They ended up locking up. Big E ended up shoving Sami Zayn to the mat. Sami was shown wearing a brace on his wrist. And Sami ended up slowly coming back into the ring. He was complaining that Big E ended up pulling his hair. Big E ended up taking Sami Zayn down into a headlock. Big E ended up applying a abdominal stretch to Sami Zayn. Sami ended up breaking out of it. And Sami was then working on Big E, which Big E came back and he leveled Sami Zayn with the shoulder. And at the end of the match, we had Sami Zayn. He ended up going under the ring, and Big E ended up crawling after him. The referee was making the count. Sami then came out from under the ring on the other side, and he was stomping away on Big E. Sami ended up running back into the ring, and because the referee had a count of 9, so Sami Zayn ran back into the ring, and he ended up beating the count, which the referee ended up counting out Big E. So Sami Zayn ended up winning the match by count out. Post-match, we had Sami retreating back out to the floor. Big E ended up coming after him. And that was that. But overall, just very meh match, in my opinion. So then we had Billie backstage. Billie ends up sending her wishes to Carmella ahead of the main event. She ended up saying that Sasha may be champion, but she still runs this division. So she was calling Sasha the most overpaid and overrated superstar in all SmackDown history. So Billie ended up going on about Bianca Belair. And Bianca was shown standing right behind Billie. Billie ended up saying that it's time for the EST to be GONE. So Bianca ends up confronting Billie, and she ended up asking why her name is in her mouth again when she needs to worry about herself. Bianca then ended up insulting Bailey's look, and she ends up saying that she's doing better than her. So Billie ended up not wanting to hear what Bianca said, and she ended up just walking off, and that was that. So then we had Kayla Braxton. Kayla Braxton was interviewing Carmella, which Carmella looked really pretty in her attire that she wore tonight. Carmella ended up saying that Sasha thinks she's the boss, but Carmella is untouchable. She's untouchable. She ended up going on and she ended up saying that she is what the SmackDown Women's Champion looks like, and that she's going to beat the disrespect out of Sasha and look sexy as hell while doing it. So Carmella then called her messenger guy over, which his name is Tommy, and she ends up telling him to set her champagne up at ringside so she can toast in style while watching Sasha's tears fall to the ground. And that was that. So then we went to Kevin Owens coming out. Kevin Owens made his way out, and we saw him slide a table into the ring. And Reigns ended up telling Jey Uso to go get him. So we go to the ring. Kevin Owens was throwing weapons into the ring. He ended up throwing a ladder and chairs in there with the table that he slid in. Kevin Owens ended up setting the chairs up, stands the table up. We saw Roman and Paul Heyman watching in the back. Kevin Owens then ended up setting up the ladder. He ended up taking the mic, and he ended up saying that he knows Roman is watching, and that Roman needs to listen closely. Kevin Owens ended up saying that he isn't afraid of Roman. So he ended up saying that Reigns is using his family to fight his battles for him. Owens went on to say that their match at TLC is the most important of his career. And he knows the Roman Reigns we see today, with all the momentum he has, can probably beat anyone in the company. Owens ended up saying that he is aware that he needs all the help he can get if he wants to win. So Kevin Owens ended up saying that he fights for his family, but his family isn't a part of the industry, and that his family supports him by watching at home. Owens wanted to say that his family won't be able to physically help him at TLC, and that he has a few friends that will be there to help. So Owens ended up introducing his friends, which were the tables, the chairs, and the ladders. So he ended up saying about how each friend, the table, the chair, and the ladder, will help him at TLC. So Kevin Owens was standing at the top of the ladder. He ended up saying that Roman can keep the head of the table, because at TLC, he will do what it takes to get back to the top of the ladder and become the Universal Champion once again. Kevin Owens went on about family, and then he got knocked off the ladder by a chair shot to the knee from Jey Uso. Reigns ended up smiling in the back. He was watching his cousin Jey unload on Kevin Owens with chair shots. Jey Uso ended up beating Kevin Owens onto the table, which lays him out. Jey Uso went to the top, and then Kevin Owens ended up getting off the table, and he ends up decking Jey Uso with a chair shot to the face. Kevin Owens then delivered shots over Jey Uso's back. Owens was laying Jey Uso with right hands, and Kevin Owens ended up driving Jey face first into the ladder, which Owens ended up putting Jey Uso through the table with a pop-up powerbomb. So then out came Roman Reigns with Paul Heyman. Owens ended up standing in the ring with the chair. He was yelling at Roman. Roman and Paul Heyman ended up watching from the stage. Heyman was shown talking strategy to Roman, reminding him that he calls the shots, and that this is his ring, and he does things on his time. So Owens ended up telling Roman to come show his family. So Reigns ended up turning around, and he walked back, to the backstage. So Owens ended up leaving the ring with a chair. He was limping up the ramp all the way to the back. That's when SmackDown went to commercial. And then when SmackDown came back, we saw Kevin Owens was marching through backstage with a chair. He was looking for Roman. Kayla Braxton end up stopping Kevin Owens for a few comments. Kevin Owens went up on yelling about Roman and Jey Uso. And then Roman ended up dropping Kevin Owens with a chair shot to his back. Reigns ended up sending Kevin Owens into like this fencing. Continues to beat up on Kevin Owens. Reigns was talking crap to Kevin Owens, and he ended up assaulting Kevin Owens even more. Reigns then looked at the camera to address Kevin Owens' wife and kids. Roman ended up saying that they haven't been formally introduced, and that he is Roman Reigns, the head of the table, and the tribal chief, the guy who put the roof over your head and the food on the table. And he was saying, if you don't talk some sense into daddy and your husband, then he's going to be the guy that takes the food off the table. So Kevin Owens was struggling to get back up. Reigns ended up stop talking, kicks Kevin Owens in the head. Reigns then looked back at the camera, and he ended up saying to have a good night. And that was that. But this was the only good thing on the show tonight. With Kevin Owens and Jey Uso, Roman Reigns. The only good thing that happened on tonight's show that I actually enjoyed, like where they're taking this Roman and Kevin Owens feud, with Jey Uso also being involved. But with Roman Reigns, I gotta mention this because I know Roman is in the news again. There's apparently talks that at WrestleMania next year, it's going to be Roman Reigns versus Goldberg once again. And I'm like, did you all ask for this match? Did you all ask for this match to see Roman versus Goldberg? I know I didn't. And I know you all didn't either. Now, if that match happens, if WWE goes along and books that match with Roman and Goldberg, calling it now, may be wrong on it, it's my prediction. I sense that match happen in 10 minutes. That's going to be a 10-minute match. Mark my words. It's going to be a 10-minute match. Why are we getting Roman versus Goldberg? Or possible Roman versus Goldberg match? Like I said, who the fuck asked for it? And there was talks about WWE trying to bring The Rock in. So who knows who Roman's opponent is going to be? It could be Goldberg, which I don't want to see, or The Rock. If I wanted to pick one, I would rather see Roman versus The Rock. So don't want to see Roman versus Goldberg. And if it does happen, I'm going to say, who the fuck asked for it? So then we had the Riott Squad versus Billie Kay and Natalya. This was terrible, god-awful match. The Riott Squad ended up winning the match. Ruby Riott ended up hitting the Riott kick to Billie Kay. The Riott Squad ended up winning. Like I say, Billie Kay is terrible here. After WWE broke up the Iconics, Billie Kay has been absolutely fucking terrible. With her going around having her picture on the back of her resume, I'm like, who finds this funny? God awful. Billie Kay is awful. So then, post-match, Billie Kay ended up throwing a fit at ringside. Billie Kay works better with Payne Royce when they were the Iconics. So then we had Chad Gable. Chad Gable was helping out Otis with training at the Performance Center earlier in the week. He was working on his blind spot, throwing an exercise ball at Otis while Otis was blindfolded. So then we went to a few hours later. Otis was making progress. Gable ended up saying that Otis is an alpha. So he went backstage. Chad Gable and Otis were with Kayla Braxton. Kayla Braxton ended up revealing that they will face Cesaro and Shinsuke Nakamura later on. Gable ended up saying that life has knocked Otis down over and over. Now he's got what Chad Gable was looking for in a talent. Now he's back up as Gable's Alpha Training Academy is going to mold Otis from a lump of clay. So Otis was making jokes on Chad Gable about his height. Of course, once again, mocking Chad Gable's height. Like that has never happened before. So Cesaro and Nakamura end up walking up. They were mocking both Chad Gable and Otis. Otis ended up getting upset, and then Chad Gable ended up reminding him that an alpha never gets worked up. So Chad Gable had Otis do some breathing exercises for Otis to relax. And that was that. Then we had Cesaro and Nakamura versus Otis and Chad Gable, which this was a quick match. So Cesaro and Nakamura end up getting the win. Cesaro ended up dropping Chad Gable on his head. Nakamura ended up tagging in. He ended up waiting for Chad Gable to get up. And then Nakamura then nailed the Kinshasa to Chad Gable. There you go. Cesaro and Nakamura end up winning. Cesaro ended up doing the Cesaro swing to Chad Gable. Post-match, we had Otis end up fuming on the ring apron. He looked disappointed about the loss. And that was that. But overall, it was just a quick match. And then we had Otis and Chad Gable backstage. Gable ended up saying that tonight was a learning lesson, and he didn't really want Otis to tag him in. Chad Gable ended up saying that Otis had the match won when he asked to be tagged in. So Gable ended up going on, and he ended up saying that tonight was a test, and that Otis failed. Gable ended up saying to Otis, that's okay, because it's all part of the alpha mentality. And Otis ended up wanting to interrupt, and Chad Gable tells him to hydrate for now, and that he will explain more later. So then Otis was shown taking a sip of his water, and that was that. And then we saw Corbin with his guys, who of course were Steve Cutler and Wesley Blake, who returned last week and helped Corbin defeat Buddy Murphy. So Corbin, Cutler, and Blake were backstage. He ended up saying that last week was perfect, and he couldn't have asked for them to do a better job. So Elise Ashton walked up to Corbin, and she was stopped by Cutler and Blake, and they had, I think it was Blake who had the security wand in hand to see if she had to see if Ashton had nothing on her. So Cutler and Blake end up letting Elise Ashton proceed to talk to Corbin. Ashton ended up asking Corbin about last week. Corbin ended up praising Cutler and Blake, and he ended up saying that this king is bringing back a little old school attitude. He ended up saying that these boys are the Knights of the Lone Wolf, and that they're no family like the Mysterios, and that there's no family drama or love story to get in the way. Corbin ended up saying that they pledged their ruthless, cold-blooded loyalty to this king. He kept saying that if Ray wants to step up, it's fine, and that he could bring his dopey son and his red-headed stepchild, Buddy Murphy. And next time the consequences will be more severe. So there you go. But who cares about this whole feud between Corbin and the Mysterios and Buddy Murphy? Who the fuck cares? So then we had Carmella versus Sasha Banks. The SmackDown Women's Championship was on the line. This was the main event. This match was god-awful. Absolutely awful. The end of the match, Carmella ended up winning by disqualification because Sasha was unloading on Carmella, beating Carmella down in the corner. And the referee ended up having to call for the bell. And of course, like I said earlier, when you know WWE books this type of match, when you know the match is on the pay-per-view card, you know it's going to end in the fuck finish, whether it's a count-out or disqualification. And there you go right here. The match ended in disqualification because we're going to be seeing the match at TLC. Contract was signed earlier in the night. So I'm like, what was the point of having this match as the main event? This was a waste of time. Post-match, you had Carmella's boy, whose name was Tommy, come from behind, grabs Sasha. Sasha ends up decking him and applies the bank statement. Carmella then makes the save. She ends up yelling at Sasha, super kicks Sasha in the face, which knocked Sasha out of the ring. So Carmella was yelling at Sasha that she has officially lost it. And she just kept on saying that to Sasha. You know, you officially lost it. Carmella then ended up putting Sasha's face in the ice bucket. And she ends up dropping her back down. Carmella was still yelling at her in front of the commentary table, which I'll get to this though, but the referee ended up telling Carmella, the referee who of course was Charles Robinson, ended up telling Carmella, you know, that's enough. You did enough. So Carmella ended up grabbing one of the champagne bottles. And of course you had the shocked look on Corey Graves' face because, you know, that's, you know, Corey Graves is dating Carmella. So of course he has to be shocked at, you know, his girlfriend there. So Carmella ended up grabbing one of the champagne bottles. She ends up smacking it over Sasha's back. You know, the bottle shatters. Carmella ended up laughing. She ended up pouring herself a toast. Drinks the champagne. She then takes the champagne bottle. She sprays the commentators, you know, Corey Graves and Michael Cole with the champagne. Goes, you know, to them and on the announce table. Carmella then ended up yelling at Sasha more. And then, of course, Greg Hamilton ends up going on that, you know, Carmella is the winner, but Sasha is still the SmackDown Women's Champion because, of course, title can't change hands on disqualification. So Carmella was shown dancing around ringside, and that was how SmackDown went off the air. But overall, god-awful show. Terrible. So anyways, that's it for the SmackDown review. Thank you all for watching. Hope you all enjoyed this review. Definitely give the video a thumbs up, comment, subscribe. And until next video, I'll see you all later.